Hey guys, and welcome to or back to the Pause of Pursuit podcast with your host, Summer Clark. Happy Wednesday. Well, it's actually Tuesday night when I'm recording this as usual, but it'll be Wednesday for you. So happy Wednesday. Hope you're having a great time. God, I'm still tired. So we're going to jump straight into the weekly recap before I get on to the topic. Basically, last week I had a whole week off the gym because I've done something to my hip flexor. It was just very tight, very sore. Went to the osteo, apparently wasn't an injury, but it was just very tight. And in all fairness, I've never been able to sit cross-legged without my hip flexors feeling really tight. So that's probably, that probably doesn't help. But I never thought much of it. But anyway, yeah, I had a week off lifting because of that. And I'm back to it now. But the point of that statement was, because you're probably all thinking, I literally don't care, so my shush. The point of that was that I basically used last week as a sort of rest week. You know, I tried to do as little as possible because I was really tired from the super busy week the week before with going to London and competing 2 days and Team GB training and all that happening consecutively over 4 days, if you remember. So I used that last week as that, just chilled, did not a lot. And on Friday, I felt great. I was like, oh my God, I am rejuvenated. I have so much energy. I hadn't yawned all day, which is few and far between at this point. And I thought, great, it's done the job. But obviously, Thames weekend happened. And Thames was great. It's literally one of my favourite shows of the year. Alongside KCI and Dogs That Need, it is my favourite show of the year. But obviously, sleep isn't a priority over Thames weekend. And it's nowhere near us either. It's 3 hours away, I believe. 3.5 hours, depending on traffic. So what we did was me and my mum and Arrow went down to Rory's. You'll probably all know who I'm on about. By Rory, but we went to stay at his on Friday night, did some training in his field, made me want a bloody field even more. Like, I was already desperate for a field, and now I'm even more desperate for a field, which I actually did post today, which is yesterday for you guys, all over my social media, asking if anyone knows of any land to rent, either indoors or outdoors, in Lincoln, because I need a field for so many reasons. I want to start teaching, I want to start being able to train more with Arrow and train the things I want to, etc. So if anyone knows of that, then please tell me. I know most of you aren't in Lincoln, but, you know, just in the area even, just, I would appreciate it if anyone heard of anywhere. I've joined all the Facebook groups and shit, but, you know. Anyway, so we did that. That was Friday night. And then Thames it also stopped us getting up as ridiculously early Saturday morning, which was great. And then on Saturday and Sunday was obviously Thames. So how my runs went. So Saturday, I'm not going to lie, I actually can't remember exactly how each run went, but what I do remember is we had the Crufts, not Crufts, bloody hell. Yeah, we did have the Crufts singles class on the Saturday. That was what it was. In that class, Arrow, it was like a scoopy rear cross into a weave entry. Usually he goes into the second pole, so I didn't trust him and I over scooped him, if that makes sense. And he went round the right side of the first weave pole. So we got 5 for that, but the rest of it was perfect. So that was irritating. And then on Sunday we had KC States qualifier, second fastest time with 2 bloody poles, and that would have qualified for us for the semi-final at KCI, wouldn't it? So fuming again, bloody poles. Will it ever end? Who knows? And before anyone comes at me, he's not injured. I take him to physio every month, okay? I think he's just been lazy at this point with his feet. Because one of the jumps I did think he'd probably take the pole because it was on a weird angle, but the other one was a straight bloody line. He was just being totally lazy. But anyway, that happened, annoying. And then Champ was also that day. So agility, we had agility again, completely my fault. No. Yeah, I've moved on to Sunday, haven't I? So KC Stakes was Sunday, but I've just completely missed out the most important part of Thames, which I'm going to sneeze. I'm going to leave that in. Hope you enjoyed that. hay fever or whatever. But anyway, no, actually, I'm probably allergic to talking about bloody poles. So I've moved on to Sunday. Casey Stakes was Sunday, but I've completely forgot about the party on Saturday night. Party was great. Had my ciders, had a great time. It was really, really cold though. Like I was I'd never been so cold. But let's just say I went to bed 4.5 to 5 hours later than I would normally go to bed. And obviously had to get up really early, fairly early the next morning to actually compete. But I wasn't prepared to not do Thames party, you know, like I just wasn't. So did that, no regrets, had a great time. Yeah, well, I was going to say I went to bed late, but it was more like early, okay? So I'll leave it there. I won't say too much about the exact time. But went to bed very early Sunday morning and also woke up very early Sunday morning. So, yeah, I also did 30,000 steps per day at Thames. So, after my nice week of rest and feeling energised again, I'm back to feeling absolutely shattered. So, I feel like if you do agility, it's just a vicious cycle of exhaustion. I hope that's not just me who thinks that. But anyway, I'm sure we're all on a very similar page when it comes to tiredness and agility. And I think agility people should get Monday, Tuesday off. I think we should have a 4-day weekend. I think we should have Saturday, Sunday to compete. Monday, Tuesday is our weekend to do nothing and recover. And then work Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, because 3 days is enough work, isn't it? Anyway, moving on. Sunday. Sunday was that Casey Stakes run that happened. Then it was Champ. I hate talking about it. So agility, all my fault. It was probably the party brain and the lack of sleep. However, Arrow ran past the tyre, and for whatever reason, my brain said, Summer, send him round the back, quick. So I did. And obviously, he doesn't know the round the back of a tyre. So he just went over the face side of it and got E'd. Why didn't I just take him back and set him up before the tyre like a normal person and I would have just got 5? He then, when I went to do an in, he just ran past that jump, so that was another 5 anyway. But I would have got away with 10 if I hadn't have done that, and then I would have made the final because I was clear and second in the jumping. So I was fuming at myself, really was. But, you know, when you're just running and your brain isn't functioning properly, like, you just do things, and then afterwards you're like, what the heck? I just can't keep clear head, clearly. But anyway, then I literally went on to have probably one of my favourite runs ever with Arrow in the Champ jumping. Martin Reed was judging Champ, and it was quite literally, they were such good courses, honestly. I really wish more courses were like that in agility these days. But yeah, we came second in that by 0.7 behind first, I think. And yeah, super happy with that run. However, here's the thing, and here is what inspired the topic of today's podcast. I don't think I would have ran that jumping as well as I did if I thought that I had to go clear or at least not get E'd. Because I ran that jumping differently. It was my last run of the day. I was like, let's just absolutely go for it. Let's just bosh it out and go home. So I absolutely went for it. I ran it exactly how I wanted to, no matter where Arrow was. I know that sounds really weird. And it was literally perfect, and it felt so good, and it reminded me of why I love agility, because recently I've been forgetting because of all these bloody poles and all these little one things in each run, but that run, oh, chef's kiss, it was so good. And that brings me on to today's episode, which is I'm going to be talking about how I'm learning to trust my dog and detach from the outcome. Now, by detach from the outcome, I mean not go into a run fretting about the outcome of said run. Because when I do that, and I know it's impossible to fully do it, but when I do that, when I fret about the outcome, I always run more careful. I always hold back a bit. I always, it's just not quite the same. I often overhandle bits like I did in the Crufts singles, and stuff like that. And there was exactly the same weave entry in the champ jumping as in the singles, and I didn't overhandle it. I just pointed to it. I just gave it one arrow, come, weave, instead of arrow, come here now, and then weave, which pulled him way too far. So he went in that right pole, and he found it perfectly. I was nowhere near him. So he bloody can do it. And then there is the part of the podcast, how I'm learning to trust my dog. Because honestly, opening up right now, I didn't think I'd find it this hard to start trusting him and not babying him, because I've babied him for 4 years. So now I'm really struggling. Like, it's my default. It's like riding a bike or something. I can't get out. I'm struggling to get out of how I've been handling him for 4 years, which I guess makes sense because it's become a habit. But it's really frustrating because I really need to let that go now. And I did do that in the jumping, but only because I managed to detach from that outcome, because there wasn't an outcome. It didn't matter. I'd already got E in the agility. So as annoyed as I am about what happened in the agility, I am also grateful in a sense, because I think I needed that to happen to realise, oh, that's how I run when I detach from the outcome. And that's how a run goes when I trust Arrow for once and not baby him. So please, everyone, hold me to this. And if you see me babying Arrow in the ring, come up to me and give me a big smack, because I'll probably revert to doing it the next show. I've got Axe Day this weekend, so I'm going to try and run every run from now on like I did that jumping, pretty much, because it was amazing. And also sometimes I think, I've got to remember we are being timed. Like, I know Arrow's fast, but, I want to win. Like, do you know what I mean? So I still need to go for it and push for speed. And to be honest, that's the fun of it, isn't it? Like, a run is... I enjoy a run more when I'm absolutely going for it. And... yeah, so what happened at Thames, as annoying as it was in Champ, also quite grateful it happened, because it also, I think, really shook me into place, kind of. It grabbed my shoulders and was like, Summer, here you go, this is what you need to do from now on. Also, side note, before we move on to the actual topic from Thames, is that if Arrow hadn't knocked those bloody poles in Olympia Stakes, I say Olympia, KC Stakes, you know what I mean? Stuck in the past I am. It would have been Ashley, me, Marianne, because Ashley and Marianne came first and second, so it would have been Team GB underrated underdogs, first, second, third. How cool would have that been? But no, polls. Anyway, that's another thing we did at Thames. We all met up and had our little catch up as a team, which is very exciting because it's so close now. Hang on, let me get my little countdown app up. So EO is 51 days until the first day of EO. That is absolutely insane. But anyway, I've been rambling about my week and about my Thames, about my weekend at Thames for 13 minutes now. So let's get into the thick of the episode. So how I'm learning to trust my dog and detach from the outcome then. So let's just start with discussing detaching from the outcome a bit more. So if you don't understand what I mean by that, I mean not holding on to this sort of desperation for the outcome. So say going into a champ run, not holding on to the desperation of a clear, going into a qualifier, not holding on to the desperation of qualifying for the event, if that makes sense. Kind of really trying to get into the mindset before you run of it's just another run, not physically going into the ring thinking in your head this is a really important class, which is, I know, really, really hard. And I haven't found the secret to doing that yet, but it is definitely something that I'm trying to practice from now on because of how much it helped me at Thames. I can't really say much more about that because, like I said, it is what it is. I'd say it's quite self-explanatory. And yeah, I'm still learning myself, but I will update you each week on how I'm getting on with that. Also focusing on where I am and trusting Arrow to follow as I've trained him to do. So this is a big one. So again, with the babying for years and years on end, I've kind of always been hyper aware of Arrow and where he is and how fast he's going and how confident he looks and where he is on the course and stuff. But actually, in that jumping, I didn't actually look at him that much. I felt like I was focusing and really concentrating more on me, my handling, how, where the visual cues I was giving Arrow, the verbal cues I was giving Arrow, where I'm running, how fast I'm running, where I need to run next, and kind of just trusting that Arrow is following me as I move around the course, if that makes sense. Because I've trained him to bloody follow me around the course as I say and do and run. Do you know what I mean? So I just felt way better about my handling for a start. I felt like I handled way better. And I don't know, it just felt way better thinking about me over thinking about him on the course, as weird as that sounds, because it is the dog getting timed and judged. But under that category falls not waiting for him. So, and Lucy will shout this at me in training a lot. Don't wait for him, get off, go, run. And, say a German, you've been practicing Germans. Aaron knows how to do a German. He knows how to commit to a German or a SERP. So if I do a German, put my arm back, and as he's going in the pole, wait for him, stand still until he's taken it, I'm going to, 1, be way behind for the rest of the course. 2, he's like to knock the pole because I'm in the way. 3, he could crash into me, also because I'm in the way. So, and I did this at training on Wednesday. We did a German. I said back from a distance and I just ran forward. I trailed my arm back, obviously, so I was thinking about my handling, but I ran forward and thought about where I had to be next. Looked behind me and he was taking the jump as I taught him to do, because I've taught him to do it, if that makes sense. So I didn't have to wait for him to complete it to make sure he completed it to continue on the course. I cued it verbally and physically, and then once I'd cued it, I trusted that he would follow through, and I got on with the next part of the course where I had to be, and then he followed. And it's just little things like that. Do you get what I mean? Obviously you can't do that straight away. Like, you've got, your dog you have to train behaviours really well to get to that point. But at the point I am now, it's like I can move to that point now. Do you know what I mean? Like, I've been doing it long enough and I've trained him hard enough to get to that point. Another thing that falls under that is watching him way less. So same thing, really. But think about it. If you're constantly watching your dog, running forward is way harder when you aren't looking where you're going. 1, you're not running as fast because your body's like, you could crash into something at any minute. You're unsure, you're uncertain. And yeah, you can't run as fast when you're looking behind you, can you? It's just not how it works. And also you might turn around and realise you're not actually in the place you thought you were because you haven't been looking. So peripheral vision is a big one for me. In that jumping, I didn't have my eyes on Arrow for much of it, to be honest. I had my eyes on where I was going to make sure I was in the right place, because if I was in the right place, then the likelihood was Arrow would also be going in the right places, if that makes sense. And obviously you can see where he is in your peripheral. Could eat one of those, to be fair. But yeah, I can see where he is. I don't have to stare him down for the whole course. So not waiting for him and just watching him a bit less. Again, you don't have to take it to the extreme where you just don't pay any attention to your dog whatsoever, but kind of getting on with it a bit more and focusing on myself as a handler instead of fixating on Arrow and what he's doing and where he is all the time. Because at the end of the day, it is what it is. Like, if you do this, then you're going to have some runs where, like that jump in, it falls into place perfectly. Other runs where, you may just lose connection, and that's just how it is. Do you know what I mean? It happens to the best of us, doesn't it? Another thing is to give cues further in advance. So again, this took me a bit of time to get used to doing, because obviously with Ethel, I didn't have to do that because she was steady. But with Arrow, giving cues further in advance is a lifesaver, and it makes sense, really, common sense wise, because, for example, straight tunnel into weaves, start giving the weave command as once they commit to the tunnel. Do you know what I mean? Like, once they commit to going in that tunnel, you can see them about to go in that tunnel, start saying weave, and as they're going through the tunnel, they'll start to think, or they should think if they're not naughty, oh, she's saying weave, 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 weave. They'll start thinking about looking out for the weaves, because fast dogs, they don't have long to think. So if you're slightly late, technically, they can't think that fast, or you can't really blame them for not thinking that fast. Another example from the weekend in Martin's Champ Agility was going over the dog walk into a threadle wrap. It was German dog walk threadle wrap. So I gave my German cue. As I saw him commit to it, I started to say push, 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 as I do. And And then obviously he went up the dog walk. Well, he was halfway, probably a bit more, or probably a bit sooner than halfway, about halfway through the dog walk, I started going la 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 la, which is his thriller up cue. So, you know, he's down the dog walk plank in like half a second. He has at the best of times, and that's me giving the cue for quite far in advance, he's still barely got a second to think about what he's doing next. So giving cues sooner is also a life changer as far as trusting your dog, because it means you can get off sooner, if that makes sense. And yeah, basically trusting your dog, well, giving your dog more of an opportunity to succeed, really. Giving cues further in advance, that's pretty much all it is. And a way to do this effectively, or in my experience, is to walk the course and say the cues. I feel like a lot of people do that anyway, but like saying the cues either in your head or out loud. I usually whisper them, to be honest. So if you see me talking to myself while I'm walking a course, that's what I'm doing. And giving the cues in walking and kind of marking mentally where you're going to start saying those cues, that really helps for me. So another one I've got here is remembering that we're being timed. So I think sometimes I forget. I know this sounds awful, but like in the lower grades, I kind of thought, well, if Arrow goes clear, he'll probably win it regardless. So I didn't really have to push or anything like that, because, do you know what I mean? Whereas now I'm in grade 7 and champ, I'm like, he's not the fastest dog anymore in this, you know, there's a lot of fast dogs now against us. So, you know, and it's like 0.5, even less maybe, between us all. So if I want to, you know, that could be the difference between first and like 6th often in these classes. And I don't want to get 6th, sorry. I know that sounds awful, but you know what I mean? Like, we're competitive over here. We do want to win. So we still got to push. You know, we don't always win. You know, second in champ jumping, we had the second fastest time in KC Stakes. Yes, it was less than the second in it, but still, maybe if I'd been a bit less careful and ran a bit harder in some places, then we would have won. Does that make sense? Not in the jumping, obviously, because I did push in that, but KC Stakes, for example. And I think at the end of the day, it's all about knowing, or at least believing, that you've done the very, very best you can, if that makes sense. Because to me, in agility and in anything in life in general, to be honest, if I come out of a run thinking I did the very best I could, then I just don't feel as bad about it if it goes wrong. Whereas the worst thing is if it's my fault. I'd rather it bloody be Arrow's silly mistake than mine. I hate it when it's my fault, honestly, because you just feel guilt, don't you? Or like regret, or you just feel a bit stupid. So, you know, if you focus on you when you're in that ring and handle the best you can and be in all the right places for you and make sure you beat your dog to each equipment, etc., and get all your blinds in and stuff, then you can leave that ring thinking, I handled like a pro. I handled the best I could in that ring, and what my dog did is what my dog did, if that makes sense. That they're still a dog at the end of the day. So, yeah, there are, how many was that? 6 things that I'm doing to learn to trust Arrow and detach from the outcome and kind of just run harder and with more of me, if that makes sense. 2 more things, zooming out, thinking of the bigger picture. This will, you know, you have to think, will this matter a year from now? Or even a month from now, 2 months from now, etc. Usually with agility, no. Even big events like Crufts, etc. There's another one next year. Do you know what I mean? You can qualify again at some point. I'm sure you can. So you've got to kind of zoom out, and that's another way to detach from the outcome, I think. Kind of thinking the outcome isn't as important as I'm thinking it is, you know, because it won't matter in this amount of time. Or even just zooming out and thinking there's more things to stress about in the world right now than this one dog agility run that I'm about to do. So trying to get a bit of perspective on it will help you to detach from the outcome. And again, it's all psychology. Like, it's all sports psychology, really, isn't it? And I actually find that really interesting. Like, I could have studied psychology, I think. I would have found that quite interesting. But anyway, you're all like, that's really irrelevant, so we don't care what you did. But anyway, yeah, I think agility is a lot mental. Like, there is a lot of mental behind agility and any competitive sport, really, I suppose. So again, that's something to practice. It won't happen straight away. It definitely hasn't happened straight away with me, and I haven't cracked it yet at all by any means. But these are just some things I'm taking away from the weekend, etc. And the last point here is, and this one's really interesting, embodying the confidence and certainty that I want my dog to feel. Especially for a dog like Arrow that has a history of nerves. If I go in thinking, right, how do I want Arrow to feel and act and behave in this ring? I want him to be confident, certain of his skills and where he's going and what he's doing. And therefore, me as the handler, how could I expect that of Arrow if I'm not embodying those things myself? If that makes sense. So I can't expect Arrow to run like I want him to run, and I can't expect to look back at that video and be happy with how he's running if I'm not confident and certain in the ring. So going in thinking, right, I'm going to run like I want my dog to run, because your dog does pick up, you are the handler, your dog will run like you run, if that makes sense. So if I go in unsure, uncertain about the course and our abilities to get round it, and I'm not confident, Arrow won't be, will he? And that's not what anyone wants. So it's kind of like, well, I kind of have to if I want to do well, now if I want to have a good run. So be what you want your dog to be in that run, because you are one partnership. In that ring, you are one being, kind of, what, you can't have one without the other, you won't have a good run without the dog, but the dog won't have a good run without you. You've got to be on the same page, on the same wavelength, if that makes any sense, which I'm hoping it does, because to me that makes so much sense, and that's kind of clicked something in my head, especially thinking about, Arrow's nerves. So if you can't already tell, most of these points are based around thinking about you more than the dog, because I think as agility handlers and dog owners in general, we're obsessed with our dogs. We spend a lot of time fixating on our dogs, thinking about our dogs, in every aspect. So even as far as fitness and nutrition goes, they're my passions, but a lot of handlers, their dogs have great fitness and nutrition, but they neglect it in themselves, or, and I think it's a similar principle here that's going on. I think we often forget about us. So, by kind of taking it off the dog a little bit and thinking about us while we're in the ring, in every sense, then, where we are physically and how we're feeling and behaving mentally and how we're handling and when we're saying cues and stuff, I think that's really going to make a big difference. So give it a go if you can. Let me know how you get on. I'm going to be trying to do this at all the upcoming shows. But one little disclaimer I do have before we end up the episode here is don't be silly about it. Like, still be sensible in the fact, in the way of, some runs are more important than others, and there's no ignoring that and there's no avoiding that realistically. For example, EO, individual versus team. You do want a bit of it in your head when you go into a team run of thinking more along the lines of a clear than, say, an individual run where you really need the speed if you want to get on the podium. Does that make sense? So I'm not saying completely detach from the outcome, like 100%, and don't even think about what you want from the run. You do have to be, there's a fine line, you do have to be aware of what run it is and what you want from the run. But I think in most circumstances, that's not applicable. But when it is something really, really, really important, and there is a difference between runs, for example, between a team or an individual, then I'm not saying handle the exact same in both. I'm saying have the same mindset and confidence, etc. in both. But maybe choose a safer handling option, but approach that handling option with more confidence and still think about where you're running and how you're cueing to make that handling option work, even though it might be safer. So apply these things, but obviously, there still has to be a thought process behind it. That was really hard to explain, so I hope it made sense, but I think you know what I mean. Basically, moral of the story, be sure in yourself. Really, that's hugely important. And yeah, know what you're going in to do, be confident, get the job done, and yeah, try focusing on yourself a little bit more to make these things happen. and trust that you and your dog have done what it takes. You know, you've trained your dog so that they will follow you, basically. But yeah, quite a random topic, but just something that I've taken from this previous weekend. Content's probably going to be, well, I'm not struggling for ideas with all these shows, honestly, because every show I come away with new lessons or new inspirations or new stories, etc. So that's great, and another good thing about the summer season. But that wraps up today's episode, guys. I hope you enjoyed it, and if you have any further questions, don't be afraid to DM me. This time next week, we have a very exciting episode. I put this on my story to ask you guys questions. I'm going to be talking to Tessa Trustner and Jada. Now, I will not try to say your name, Jada, if you're listening to this, because I will butcher it. But yeah, I'll be talking to those two, Tessa Agility and Those Feral Creatures, on Instagram in the next podcast. They host Next Gen Agility podcast, which is, I love it. It's, you know how I said before, I don't listen to other agility podcasts? I listen to this one. Weirdly enough, I literally have never listened to agility podcast, but I host one. But I actually do listen to Next Gen Agility podcast because it's just mega. I love it. And, you know, I really like shows with two hosts, I think. So let me know if you like my episodes where it's just me or when I'm talking to people more. It'd be really interesting. But yeah, I'm going to be speaking to those two about UK versus US agility next week. So get excited for that. Set your alarms next Wednesday, 8 p.m. That episode will be going live. Very excited. So on my episode, I'll be asking them your questions about US agility, and then over on their podcast, I think that'll be going up this Friday, so a bit sooner because we're recording tomorrow on Thursday for you guys. On their podcast, they will be asking me questions about UK agility, if that makes sense. So very exciting collaboration episode coming up for you guys next. Told you I'd get guests on again. Told you. Got some more planned as well. But yeah, that's coming up, and if you're feeling generous, please do leave a rating or review on Spotify or Apple Podcasts. That would mean the world to me. 5 stars if you love me. I will love you back forever. And follow me on all the socials, at Pause in Pursuit, on absolutely everything. As I said last week, I'm trying to be back on my TikTok grind. I bloody love making TikToks. It's just my kind of it's my cup of tea. It's my cup of tea. It is literally how I express my weird sense of humour. So I hope you're enjoying that as well. And I'm pretty sure I've covered everything. So with that, I'm going to go get this episode up for you guys. Bye guys. See you next week.